Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and sometimes dye stocks can go bad. Now this dye stock that I made in November is a color that is usually pretty soluble, but when I shake it you can see there are all these like little particles that are in here, which could be dye that crashed out and solidified and came back in solution, or could be I don't know if it could be a microbe. This is not something I normally see happen with navy, and I've had colors be this old before. So we're gonna kind of investigate this a little bit. And the first thing that I wanna do is try to like filter it a little bit. So I have a funnel with a paper towel in it, and I'm gonna take this dye stock and pour it on. Now, the dye does not smell bad. And so therefore, I think it could just be the particles clumping a bit. I'm gonna fill this container with water, mainly because I'm curious if these particles will dissolve. Because sometimes I'll see like a crust of stuff that happens on the bottom of a stock solution container, and I don't know if that's what's happened here. As I pour this liquid down. Now what's coming out the bottom is not very pigmented. I probably could have used an actual coffee filter. But you know what? Those particles do not seem to be very soluble. I doubt we'll see them on the paper towel. I'm trying to see if I can get them out of here. But one would imagine, and like, I have had things spoil before, like guar gum. A guar gum liquid solution will spoil after like a few days to a week. It'll start smelling really funky. And this doesn't have an odor that is indicative to me of something that has spoiled. Although, I mean, it very much could be, but I figured we may as well dye some yarn out of this. Hopefully this didn't tear. I guess I'm gonna need to leave this for a while, or maybe bring over a second container to collect this liquid, and we can show a pigmentation difference. But in theory, there should be no particles left in this guy that could lead to speckles or something that needs rinsing out. I don't really know, but I mean, the water's coming slowly that I think something is trapped. And I'm not seeing any particles make it through. So we'll see if this process really works. And then we'll get ready to dye some yarn. Okay, I'm at the sink and everything is soapy. I wanna see if I can find another one, because those little things, here's one. They are absolutely dye. Like, it is pigment that sort of spreads out and dissolves. So it's like the pigment crashed out of solution and sort of settled on the bottom of the container, but then broke up and was not soluble with everything else. And so if you dye with it directly, then you could end up with some rogue speckles. Maybe in boiling water it would eventually dissolve, but I think that that is what these particles are in this case, just because crushing them, and I wish maybe when the filtering stopped, but crushing a big one did result in me spreading dye out in my sink. So we will see, and we will try to get this bottle pretty clean, because there was like one spot along the bottom where you can see that there's like a bit of a dark ring. I still see like a bit of stuff in there. So we'll try with warm water and soap to get it as clean as possible. Okay, I'm now gonna pick up this paper towel, and we can see over here, yeah, looking through, I'm not really seeing any particles. Somehow this kind of worked. Yeah, here, there's like a lump of particles here, and if I were to take this, very easily I can paste it up into a color. And yeah, that is a bunch and globs of navy dye that we don't want to go and stick on our yarn because that is not our goal. Now, again, I could try to resolubilize this, but it's really not worth it. Well, let's see what kind of tonal we get out of that navy we did save. A little bit more background because this video is kind of all over the place. This dye stock was originally mixed at a 1% concentration, where we had 1 gram of dye dissolved in 100 milliliters of liquid. And with this color, I haven't seen this happen before, but it's hard for me to make a conclusion there. But I know that Dharma, because this was a Dharma acid dye, I was about to talk about how Dharma had a red once that they said like clumped when dissolved, and so you had to filter that out. That was one of the first batches of fire red I think I ever had. But this was, I think, the batch of dye that I used that I discovered faded with steam setting. And I don't know when I noticed it be like particly like this, because when I noticed it fade, it was when it was fairly new. And this isn't something I've noticed before. But I guess my hypothesis of what happened, some of the dye settled at the bottom, sort of got stuck there and then got loosened and broke up and then was just sort of easily suspended versus being stuck on the bottom of the container. Yeah, that is what I think happened, but you never really know. I can make all the hypotheses I want, but really, I guess it doesn't mean much if I don't know what happened. But anyway, the goal was to try to use up the last bit of this dye and also see if those particles, if I thought that they were pigment or something else, and I think they're pigment. Today is March 9th, 2026, so the stock is about 4 months old. And once again, I've had stocks that are older, that have had no problem, and I've had stocks with this color a lot and not seen this before. But given that there was so little of the dye stock left, I might have just disposed of it. But the fact that it didn't smell bad or like a spoiled anything, then that was a reason for me to continue using it. Here is a leftover dye bath. It had a lot of vinegar in it, way more than probably at this point an equivalent of 4 tablespoons of vinegar per 8 cups of water. So pretty high acid. And let's bring over first the navy that was filtered first. And I'm looking, I do see some particles in there. You can kind of see, oh, you can see one really well, like right there. But it's dissolving pretty well. Okay, and there is the rest of the pigment. We could end up with a rogue speckle on our yarn. If that happens, that happens. But for now, and you can, oh goody, you can see some of that steam that we have. I'm gonna take 100 grams of Knit Picks Stroll fingering weight yarn, which is 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon. And I'm taking this yarn while it is dry, and we are going to submerge it. Now, I feel like I have done depths of shade of dark navy in the past, probably with regards to glazing. And if I remember, I can pop that up in the conclusions. Not that that's going to be that helpful for determining like how much pigment we actually have, because if I'm going for something glazed, we want just like a shallow layer of color on the outside of the yarn. And this time, I mean, in theory, we could end up with something that is glazed-ish, but the goal is more to just get coverage and moving things and starting with dry yarn. We're sort of sucking the liquid in like a sponge. So we're gonna have a beautiful tonal here, but I think what I wanna do is heat this for 30 minutes and then we'll pop back over. It's been 30 minutes and I'm gonna turn off the heat because we now have a quite lovely blue, like grayish blue tonal. I mean, it's very much a light navy. Like, I don't think that the navy particles have gone gray. That's not what I'm meaning. I'm meaning that we have this sort of like muted blue that is very pretty, very neutral, and I'm gonna set it aside to cool completely so we can wash it. Let's wash this pretty blue yarn that we got from that leftover navy. And I'm gonna add a little bit of some dish soap into here. But as I wash this, I tend to be a big proponent of leave no dye behind. And this started off, this whole concept of trying to use up all of my dye leftovers came initially from a place of frugality. If I spent money on dye, I didn't want to waste it and I wanted to use it, and I thought that I could use it for more demonstration. Now, there's also benefits of not dumping pigments down the drain and things environmentally. And so that is sort of like a nice added benefit of using up leftovers. But it is okay to decide, I'm not going to use this dye stock. And I don't want you to feel guilty about that. But hopefully if you have a situation like this, you'll see that, okay, you can filter it with just a paper towel and then create a color that is really beautiful and very, very usable. Now, if you don't have a funnel, you could take a plastic cup and cut a hole in the bottom of it to create a similar filtration system. But anyway, I'm gonna pop this through my spin dryer and hang it up to dry. You don't need a lot of dye to make a really pretty tonal. And I was trying to look to see if I see any speckles. I do see some areas where we have a little bit more pigmentation, but it's so subtle. It's not really a speckle as much of a little splotch. And, you know, as I kind of look through, I really think that any of the particles that made it through my filtration did eventually dissolve with hot water. And we have a beautiful yarn that, yes, smells clean and perfect. Now, just because I decided to filter out the clumps and use this dye right away, doesn't mean you have to make that same choice. You could filter the dye to remove the clumps, set it in another container, and save it until maybe you're doing something hand painted and want like a little navy accent, or what have you. You also don't have to add water as you're filtering it. I just decided to try to collect as much of the dye as I could. Now, since I film videos and have a shop, I can create random tonals like this that are neutral, and they can go to a customer who will use and love the yarn. But maybe you don't have a lot of extra yarn to dye up when you don't have a vision or a purpose of what you're going to turn that yarn into. And that is completely okay. But it's also a lot of fun to just sort of sometimes see what will happen. And this is something I love being able to do and sharing the troubleshooting and the projects and everything I do with all of you. So please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. And while you're giving the video a thumbs up, engaging with the videos like this is the biggest way to help support the channel. Check out this stunning tonal variation that we have in here. It is super subtle, but so beautiful. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching.